Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave. You're on candid camera.
So much for that.
Who's been here before? Hey, you, that guy, I don't know you, but the community here is getting stronger, and it is fantastic to see where we started only a few weeks back, that we keep on getting very strong engagement, and we continue building from where we are. I can't wait to tell you a little bit more about the stories that we're going to hear about today. But first, I'm going to start with something a little different from last time, which is that 300,000 years ago, Egypt was the height of human technology. They were building these things very tall and high, called the pyramids. And historians are still trying to figure out how these things were actually made. Were they made with machinery that came from outer space? The trick is that the Egyptians were just using something very simple called brutal force, labor, slaves, and a little bit on creativity. And with that, they were able to build those things. The structure of the Egyptian society was very much replicating this structure of the pyramid, with the pharaoh at the very top and the slaves at the very bottom. And if you would have asked one simple question to the slaves, which is, would you live in a world that doesn't have slavery? Every single one of them would have said absolutely yes. But if you would have asked them if that world was at all possible, every single one of them would have said, no. Are you kidding me, man? What are you talking about? Because that's what they're used to be. Just like the slaves of Egypt, we're often caged into the slavery of our brains, thinking that the same structures and business models that we've been used for the last 20 years and 30 years will be projected into the future. What we know now, working with blockchain companies and many of you in the community, is that what we're seeing today is just the tipping point. The tipping point of a technology called blockchain that is meant to change the way that we perceive, realize, consume, and experience the world of every day. The reason why we built together with a team, Sarah, Syrio, I'm going to introduce them in a second, this meetup is an opportunity for us to learn and understand a little bit more about one side of this community, which is initial coin offerings. What they are, how to behave from an investor perspective, from a company perspective. But there's obviously a lot more that we can explore. And we started seeing this discussion building up here at Fusion over the last 12 months. And we at Fusion have been helping more than now 10 companies to actually build blockchain products and even go through successful ICOs. So without further ado, today we're going to learn about the stories from the market very practically from two companies that are trying to reinvent traditional industries. And they're doing it in their own novel way. And we hear about their story and how they're doing this and what they've learned. But first, let me talk about the team here behind us. I'm Sal, the CEO and managing partner at Fusion, which you'll learn about in a second, a little bit more of. But none of this would be possible if it wasn't for the team behind ICOChain. And the first one who I just saw enter the room is Sarah, who I'm just gonna make come up here. Let's give her a hand. Who originated, this community together with Syrio, who I'm going to bring up here on stage. Give her a hand. And Sarah comes from experience of really being not only passionate about the opportunity of the blockchain, but also about the implications of this from an economical and social perspective. And you've been researching this on a day-to-day. Oh, I should put, where's the slides? There you go, so we have it here. And then on the other side, Syrio is been building up a blockchain company as a co-founder of SMAX. So I'll just hand it over for you guys to just give a word to the community.
So hello everyone. Thanks Sal for introducing us. We are happy to share the knowledge, in fact, all our research, what we are working on with Syrio, Fusion, and all the startups that are willing to share their experience they gained through performing an ICO, for instance, or trying to do a pre-ICO and so on. So now I'm gonna let the talk to Syrio.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for those on YouTube to watch us. It's really a delight every time we organize this kind of events to have such interest of everyone. So thank you very much.
Now, with that, I'm just going to give a very brief introduction about Fusion, and then I will hand it over to you, Sarah, for the introductions of the startups. Thank you. So, just very briefly, Fusion, for those of you who don't know, has been around since 2015, and our motto is, as you can read on my t-shirt, to supercharge innovators. We are entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, so the objective is to provide the platforms for entrepreneurs to further grow and scale their companies. And we don't do this only with entrepreneurs, but we also do it with intrapreneurs, with those who work at large corporations and they are looking for ways to innovate and shape the future with us. And we work with them on a day-to-day basis. I'm obviously not alone. We're together with a team. I believe we were probably two last year, this year, because we reorganized the team, and we're definitely growing. And obviously, we all met the lovely Adela at the entrance, and the lovely Olga at the entrance. So kudos to them. In fact, Olga, I'm going to bring her on stage really quickly because Olga is the one that has made sure that you guys could all be here and organize on the logistical side together with Sarah. And so thank you, Olga, for that. Cheers. So what are we doing at Fusion? Like we said, we are catalysts for change and innovation, and we're doing that across the world, attracting startups and entrepreneurs from over 40 countries together with large corporations with whom we work. If you want to check us out, go to fusion.xyz, which is our new website, and you'll know more about what we do. We started in 2015 on the side of one vertical, which is fintech, and that's really key because early days of crypto and blockchain in general was all about fintech and fintech projects. What we're seeing though over time is that is changing. And obviously we started seeing this in the space of PropTech, so real estate and smart cities. We're starting to see that in the space of digital health, life tech, medicine, and in more and more other cases. In fact, you'll see here today a company that is coming from a completely different perspective of these, which I'm excited to hear their story from. So we're doing this across these verticals, and we are now scaling up to more industries where we see tremendous opportunity for exponential technology like the blockchain to reshape the world and reshape industries. We also care a lot about communities. Many of you are from here, from Switzerland, and for that we believe that we are playing an important role to bring cohesiveness to the ecosystem and continue fostering the culture of fail fast, succeed fast as well, and learning from each other. And we are really proud of doing that since 2015. So if you want to talk about us or learn about us, you can go to our social channels on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and otherwise you can just come and talk to us after this. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce, I'm going to have Sarah introduce the speaker. Sarah, please, come on. Thank you. Woo. Cheers.
Okay, so today for our third chapter on ICOChain, we have on stage Lip, a startup pursuing esport. They will explain us investment on ICO with more or less with the investor side and also with the startup side. What are, for instance, the benefits to that the startup can have doing an ICO? And then on the second part, we will have Vincent Trouche from Token Estate, who will explain us more about the token, the difference, for instance, between a utility token and a security token, and some news about the regulation also. So, Yvan, I'm calling Alexander, George, and Yvan on stage.
All right, let's give a hand.
Thank you. So hello everyone, I'm Alex, my colleague here, George. We're both working basically on LEAP, which is trying to redefine esports. Who plays video games here? Anyone? That's kind of normal because most people who play video games are kind of young. I mean, about
You're saying they're old? What's the
I'm old. Gray hair, you know, so, I mean, sorry. And about 2 years ago, when someone would come up to me and say, hey, Alex, what is esports? I would just look at the person and say, I have no clue. But then I met an entrepreneur who was raising money, and he couldn't raise money because every investor told, no, we're not going to invest, we're not going to invest, we're not going to invest. And at the time, I was an angel. Something that has become a dinosaur today's age of ICOs. So me and George, we met Yvan, and we basically invested right away. We were like, we had no clue what it was, but the guy was building a company and it made profit, which was weird. And I mean, if you're ever an investor and someone comes up to you and says, I have raised zero cash, everyone said no to me, but I persevered, and now I have a business which makes money. As an investor, they were like, makes sense, right? You put money. So that's what we did. And we started like supporting the company, which was an educational platform. Because Yvan, the founder, who couldn't be here today because Murphy's Law, he became sick, so he didn't have a voice. So it would have been hard for him to pitch today or to talk about this. So we decided, to explain it in his words. So what we want to do today is to give you an example. Because up to 7 months ago, I had no clue what blockchain was. And I don't know, anyone who plans to do an ICO anymore? Really? Only 2 people? 3. Jesus.
Wow.
Who is trying to build something with blockchain? I hope one. Oh, God. At least. Who wants to invest in ICOs? Okay. So basically, that's good. So I'm going to try to give you an example from an investor point of view, because I look at tokens and this approach from an investor point of view, but I'm also a coder. So when Yvan came to us and said, hey, I want to do an ICO, I didn't just want to jump in and say, hey, let's work with someone. I wanted to code smart contracts myself. So I went through the whole process of understanding what blockchain is and what the solidity is and all that stuff. So I want to give you like a very short explanation of how we went about it. So basically, myself, up until a few weeks ago, I was an investor. But with ICOs, just like Sal said, you can do stuff which couldn't be funded before the ICOs. Because I've been fundraising before, I've been investing before, and you are limited. You're limited in what you can do. Because you meet it, and this limitation was also for myself. When I met a founder, I was also always looking, okay, I'm going to invest in this guy or this team. If they don't succeed, can they do a follow-up investment? So before even starting to make this decision, you're going to think about, does this make sense? Will they survive? Will I lose my money? And I usually lost my money, so I only have like 3 companies which actually survived and make sense. But I'm just trying to explain, with ICOs, you can do anything you want. And this changes everything. You don't have to like think in terms of, okay, I'm going to raise $100,000, I'm going to do something small and then raise $500,000, like all these rounds, A, B, C, D, whatever. And you always, every time you have to conform like certain rules and regulations of the venture capital industry. All of that is gone. All of that is gone. You can just get out there, say, this is what I want to do. This is my team. This is my vision. They can raise money. This is crazy. And we've tested it now, like we've done a very private sale, just to test it out, because I'm a coder, I want to control it, I want to understand it. But with, for example, I also like 2-3 weeks ago, I decided to do also something. So basically, okay, this is not really, so we did first research, so before we did the ICO. And the research is very simple. You go online, you look like, who's done an ICO? Who's running the ICO? And the easy way would be go to companies like HandySafe, which is a Swiss company, I believe. Well, moderately Swiss because they're mostly Russians, but okay. So then you have Syrio, which is also an American company, Russians, and so on and so on and so on. And then you have the ICO mafia. And what I felt there is that when Ivan pitched those guys to become partners, the first thing they cared about is, okay, how much are we going to make? We want some money, and then we want some tokens, like a high percentage of the tokens, plus we want some crypto as well. And they didn't care about what Ivan was doing or what we were doing. They didn't care. They cared about short-term gain. And I'm not talking about all companies, I'm talking about HandySafe. By the way, which is a great company, but I'm just trying to explain. If you want to do an ICO, this is a long-term thing. You need partners who can like think long-term as well. And you need to control this process. Obviously, I advise this to everyone who is considering doing an ICO, go through the smart contracts. Try to understand it, it's not rocket science. And whenever you're going to deploy a contract, do it yourself. Let someone help you, but be the owner of the contract. I see a lot of people saying, oh, I'm going to give that to a developer, he's going to solve that. The only problem is, the person who deploys the contract owns your ICO. You cannot change anything. And this is something that people don't realize. So, if anything, I would like, if for the guys who want to do an ICO, before you do it, learn what Solidity is, try to make a smart contract, it's fucking easy. And when you are going to deploy it yourself. So, this is, by the way, Bugsy's ego. Like, for me, ICOs make stuff crazy, make crazy stuff possible. Like, I wouldn't be able to do what I want to do with Hydra and George, pitching it to a VC. It's impossible. By the way, I tried. You know, they came to me like, Alex, come on, we like you. We know that you can build stuff. We know that you can execute, but this is crazy. With ICO, it's possible. So whatever you want to do, you should do it. So ICO is also, it's not, there's two things in an ICO. One is marketing, because it's like pushing a candle soup. It's purely marketing because you're talking to investors, and the investors are interested in hearing about your team. They want to see some traction. They're not necessarily looking at your product. I've seen that a lot. A lot of the ICOs which have raised money, they have a team, they have some advisors, which usually do nothing, which are just like placeholders there. And for an investor, you go to a page and you see, okay, nice team. Oh my God, they have McAfee, they have this advisor from this huge company. And you have this trust towards the ICO. And basically, when you start communicating with those people, you ask, okay man, what do you do? Well, they contacted me, and sure, I like the team. What do you do? Well, we have calls. But on the other hand, when you as an investor go to that ICO site, you think like, oh my God, this is so huge. And usually it's not. So basically, if you're considering doing ICO, you have to control the narrative. You have to build communication. Comms is like super important. And that's why the comms for Leap which we tested out in many different ways. First of all, we tried outsourcing this, obviously. I mean, the first thing you do, oh, we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to stay up all night talking to potential investors. Why should we do that? Let's hire someone to do that. It's not going to work. They're going to fuck it up, they're going to mess it up. So what we did is we actually hired a team, educated them how to communicate, educated them on our narrative, so they understood what they were selling. And then basically, day and night, there were people in Slack, in Telegram, online, like everywhere, even on Discord. So you had every single moment of the time, if someone came in and wanted to communicate, they could do it. So that means basically that communication is number one. So maybe not number one, you have the narrative, what you want to do, and then you have comms, communication. And it's very hard to outsource that, because you're basically outsourcing your success to someone else. If it works out, great. The chances of it working out, pretty slim. So basically, obviously we did a few mistakes. Obviously, when we started out, I'm from the old school investing culture. I did a few syndicates on AngelList, so I was like, okay, how do we structure this? How do we do this? And my first reaction was, it has to be legal, right? So what do? You hire lawyers. You start talking to lawyers. And lawyers are like, they have this, they don't care about whether it's legal or not, they only care about the funds. So we spend a shitload of money on understanding what they don't understand. They will never give you a 100% answer, oh, this is going to be legal. It's always like, well, like utility token, and then you have the other token, and a security, and it's basically you spend it. You waste, not spend, you waste time. And the ICO is all about knowing, is it legal? From my perspective, no. It's not legal. I'm sorry. I mean, other people can say it's legal. But until a certain moment in time where governments will actually say it's legal, we're going to accept it. Sorry, guys. Every ICO today, we're trying to do it differently, but still, if you look like from the top, it's not legal. We're selling securities. You can try to explain it differently. You can say, oh, it's a utility token. We'll find some reason why it's a utility token. And you'll have someone saying, yeah, a lawyer telling you, oh, if you put this in the contract, it's going to be considered a utility token. If you ask him to write that in blood, he'll say no.
Lawyers don't write anything in blood.
You can force them. I have a Russian background. I'm like 10% Russian, so you can. That was like a joke on Twitter. So there's like a lot of people who are saying, oh, the ICOs are over. Because you had like a few big ones and now it's going to be harder. So yeah, ICOs are over. And then you have these idiots who say, like usually, oh, the ICOs never, like, no, that's not gonna work. Like all these people who are always negative and trying to find reasons why not to do something. ICOs are not going to go away. They're not. Because it's so fucking easy. We've done practically nothing, and we were able to like raise like a small amount, but do absolutely basically nothing. We didn't even start the private pre-sale. We just we published a contract, sent a few emails. Okay, obviously, we did some work. We did the communication, but still, it's like easy. The first $100,000 that Ivan from GameLeap raised was horrible until he met us. Because we were like idiots who said, okay, we're in. But most angels like, oh, you have to talk, you have to have the contract, all that stuff. You know how easy it is to invest in an ICO? You wire money, you wire Ether to a contract, and you get some tokens in return. Now, obviously, from an investor point of view, this is hell. I mean, seriously. Because you're sending money to someone. You're like, if you are a classic angel, a traditional angel investor, you usually you're used to having contracts, right? Like a convertible notes, like these type of things. Forget that. No rights. But on the other hand, you have liquidity, which is amazing. Okay, this is going a little. So they're not going to go away because for the founders, it's amazing. A founder can raise money and can execute. And I know a lot of investors, and I've spoken to a lot of VCs as well, who freak out. Now VCs are really in a bad spot. Because they're like, they used to be like waiting in a chair, like sitting, and they're waiting until startups come, and they're really like pitching them, like, hey, I want $500,000, I want $1 million. If you're like really cool, $2.5 million. Now we're like, $2 million? Are you fucking kidding me? We can do 10 million. So this changes the mechanic. Business angels, which I used to be, they're gone. They don't exist anymore. Because who cares about 50K? Who cares about 100K? I mean, no one. I mean, a serious project. They don't care about those amounts. So what will happen over the coming year, 2018, is the quality will go up. You already see that because the ICO has become so popular, you have at any given time a doubling every week of the amount of people who are doing an ICO. And obviously, what is an ICO today? It's a nice, beautiful page with maybe some video, some white paper that someone wrote, a team, some advisors, and a button, buy. And a marketing machine. That's an ICO. And there's like a ton of them. Just go on Reddit and just look at, like, there's like a subreddit called ICO Crypto. Just like every day, every hour, you have like someone doing an ICO. Or you go to some group on Facebook, like everyone is doing something. But from an investor point of view, you have to go a little deeper. You have to understand. Like, if you want to invest in an ICO, read the white paper. Like, connect to the team, talk to them. You can do that because a good team has a communication channel. You can ask questions. And based on how they reply, you can make an investment decision. Don't just like look at the amount of money raised or the amount of tokens sold, because this is not really good. You have to look at it, like from an investor point of view, you need to do your homework. So what did we learn? What did we do wrong with Leap? And usually people don't like to talk about their mistakes. I hate mistakes. I hate talking about stuff I did wrong. But since I'm here, I'm going to share some stuff. First of all, execute like fast. Like I'm not talking about building something. I'm talking about starting. Like learn Solidity, make a contract, publish it. And the lawyers, sure, you have to have the lawyers. But don't let the lawyers guide you in when you need to do an ICO. Don't let the lawyers tell you what you should do and should not do. Because at some point in time, the lawyers were actually correcting our white paper. This is like hilarious. Imagine you go to a doctor, and the doctor say, okay, you need to do this. And you need to take those medicines. And then you have a lawyer coming in, well, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't do that. The guy doesn't know shit about what he's talking about, but because he thinks or she thinks, oh, this may be construed as whatever, you're taking something out of your vision. And if you're taking something out of your vision, it may very well kill your fucking project. So you need to execute fast, and when you make a mistake, that's where the lawyers come in. Make mistakes, once you raise some money, let them solve the shit. I mean, and you'll get it. But if you wait until you've created a perfect ICO, it's not going to work. Someone else will be first, someone else will be faster. It's a worldwide game, basically. It's a war. What else? When you're building, like this works on both. This works on both sides. If you are an investor, you want to invest in an ICO, and people are pitching you something, and the team doesn't have the skills, it's the same as it used to be with an investor. Like the team comes to you and says, "We want to build an airplane." Okay, are there any airplane engineers? Are there any people understanding how to build an airplane? No? We're going to hire them. No, it's not going to work. It's the same with ICOs. If the team is pitching something, they should at least have the skills so they can execute. If they can't execute, it doesn't matter how much money you raise. Companies are not built by employees, they're built by founders. So if the founders don't know how to build stuff they want to build, you're going to have a serious problem. And again, from an investment point of view, you may actually make a profit post-ICO. But if you think long-term, the project is going to die. At some point in time, they're going to run out of money. It doesn't matter how much they raise. Spending money is easy, I know. So it's easy to spend money. But what happens when you run out of money? What happens while you're spending money? You need to really have a team that can move forward. And you need people who can help you. Like if you have a team, a young team, no experience, do they have advisors? Like people who, not just advisors for a name, but you have to connect to those advisors, ask them like, hey guys, are you actually helping? I'm an advisor in Leap. I did the smart contract. I helped with the white paper. I actually was there. I attracted other people. So being an advisor in an ICO is like almost a full-time job. Like if you're really serious about it. If you're not serious about it, you just like look at the name. But again, from an investor point of view, you need to do your due diligence. And the most important thing, building companies, like the way companies are built hasn't changed. Okay, yeah, sure, it's a little easier to raise money, but how you build companies hasn't changed. Blockchain hasn't made it easier. So you still fail, companies still fail, even if they have a good product, even if they have like a great team, they can still fail. So when you invest, meet the team, like understand what they're building. Does it make sense? Don't just look at what's happening, like don't look at the marketing, because this is what is the most important thing. And then, this is also what we learned, is that network is the most important thing. And this is why also I'm using my network and AngelList to actually support the companies we invest in. Why? Because it's not about just marketing. It's about getting interesting investors in who can provide value. And without the network, you can't do anything. It also means that you can hack certain things. Like for example, if you're doing an ICO, you can go to someone who has already done an ICO and just ask the Facebook pixel. So you can retarget the investors who invested in that ICO. So you keep your budget down. These are hacks which are easy. You just need to like reach out to someone who's done an ICO, explain what you're doing, and if the guy or the girl likes what you're doing, probably you'll come to some agreement, and this will keep your costs down, basically. So there are a few things, and network is important. So, like what I said, if you're doing an ICO, dump Slack. Slack has become a spam channel. It's basically so hackable. I mean, yeah. Good company, but not for ICOs. Communication is important. Create a Telegram channel, create Discord, like comms, super important. And use intercom to update your investors. So the moment people get in, communicate. Because from an investor point of view, the investor also has to build trust. And if the founders don't communicate, they don't say what they're building, if you're just getting in and they only care about raising money, they're not saying what they're building. Again, don't forget that it's not just about raising money, it's about executing. And so join the ICO join the company that wishes to do a pre-sale or a sale. Before they actually do it, look at what they're doing, communicate, and try to understand if they're actually serious. Video, very important. I don't understand why people are not using it. I see a lot of people paying $1,000 to $2,000 to some, I was going to say idiots, but to some company that creates these voiceover, and then you have this like animations, we're doing this, blah, 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 blah. Come on, you're investing in people. So let the person talk, and let the person sell you his vision or her vision. So if you're doing an ICO, get out there, share it, like talk about what you're doing, and video is easy. It's like, it trumps everything else. And again, and this is also like from an investor point of view, if you ever go to a company that does an ICO, you're gonna be retargeted like crazy. You're gonna go like, it's like you go to Amazon and you're looking at the product, I don't know, some product. Everywhere you go, you will see this product again. Like for the end of days until the ICO is finished. And then if you go to 2 ICOs, you're going to see this, like these two. And if you go to, so basically, be prepared to be bombarded with retargeting like crazy. Now, you also have to understand that this is obviously marketing. And if you want to make money in ICOs, you need to, again, do not guide yourself with these retargeting campaigns, because this is easy. You just have a pixel, and then you have some banner, and then you build up this momentum, okay? 2 days until the ICO, 1 day until the ICO, and the price goes up or down, whatever. And they create this fake notion of urgency, this fake notion of scarcity. Okay, all of that is fun, but from an investor point of view, again, do your due diligence. Don't be guided by these things. And from an ICO point of view, if you're doing an ICO, sorry, you have to advertise, you have to retarget. Because that's the only way. The more ICOs there are, the more noise for the investors. And the harder it is for you to get through. And that's why I say video is very important. Because then you can actually sell your vision, you can explain what you're doing. And you need to like advertise, test, advertise. It's an advertising game basically. And use channels which are underused. Reddit, although you can't really advertise token sales, but still. Facebook is amazing, Twitter. Partnerships, that's what I said basically.
Now, what is important here, if I may quickly add, because especially for those of you who are doing your own token sale, or you consider doing your own token sale, you probably know, like if you have started already, that you will be absolutely bombarded with hundreds, if not thousands, of offers to promote your token sale in some way. Like some dude will say, hey, send me 1 Bitcoin and I will like put you in like this like 5, 10, whatever Telegram groups where, I don't know, thousands of potential audience will see your offering, or I'll do this and that. So like, this space is getting so crowded. Obviously, like people make so much money that there's so many, like we call them parasites, okay? Like people who are not adding absolutely any value. They're just like for example, like if I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to be dismissive, but let's say some guy like in some country, which is, I don't know, like a third world country or something, and you don't have an easy way to make money, right? And what you decide doing is, hey, I'm gonna do a Telegram channel, and I'm gonna like pump in all my high school friends there, so we have like 1,000 people, and then I'm going to spam like shit out of all ICOs I get there, like, and I'm gonna tell them, hey, like I'm promote you in my Telegram channel, you just send me 1 Bitcoin. And that's just one example. I mean, there's so many of them, like so many sites popping up about like blockchain news, Bitcoin news, whatever. And all of them are super overpriced, like very overpriced. They're like most of the time they're not worth anything of like paying at all. So my advice would be for anyone who's doing an ICO, really analyze before you spend any money on marketing. Analyze: which are the channels which are overpriced, which don't deliver content, and where and how can I reach potential users much cheaper and like much more directly, and where is nobody else, or like where are the places where the crowd is not going. And like my personal like conclusions from like what we did is that partnerships work best still, like human relations, what Alex mentioned about Facebook pixels work really good. Like use Google, use Facebook, use places where you can measure like what are the results of like a particular advertisement, and where you can track. Like if you can build win-win relationships, do it. But
well, for example, Cointelegraph and
right.
Bitcoin, like whatever, all these things. It's like, I'm 45, I'm old, so I was still in the age of internet when internet started, when we had blogs and MySpace and all that shit. And we had display advertising. Like, if you would go to any media buyer today, and you would say, okay, I'm selling you 1 million views, and you have a click-through rate, and blah, blah, blah. And you can only do this type of banners. For me, this is like taking 10 years back. So when I received the offers from Cointelegraph and all the other guys, what happens? Like really, this is like 200 million years ago. So, but because people who do an ICO think that there are shortcuts, they think, oh, I'm going to put some money there, I'm going to put some money there, I'm going to put some money there, it's going to work. No. That used to work. But if you want to like really get the word out, start with a video, start with a narrative, try to get people excited. There's no shortcuts. And the more ICOs there will be, the less this advertising that is going to, like, you can go to Cointelegraph, it's basically, it's like a page with banners.
Yeah, so if I can like very
And then
practical
there's a
advice.
second thing, a lot of these articles that are there, come on guys, they're like friends of friends of friends. I mean, fundraising is hard. So if Salis, you remember, fundraising is hard, it's, the ICO is easier, but it's still hard. If you really want to do it well. And I'm not talking about legal, I'm talking about raising actual money. So from a start point of view, why should you do an ICO? I mean, if you ever fundraised before, like in the old days, this is easy. This is really easy. What do you need to do? You need to create a pitch, which is a white paper, video, you record it once. You need to create a smart contract, okay, and you need to do some marketing. And then you need to look on your wallet. Things coming in. This is easy, guys, really. Contracts. Now, this is a good thing and a bad thing, because if you're an idiot, you're gonna do idiotic stuff. And it doesn't matter how much money you raise. I know now today that a few of my friends who raised, I'm not gonna name names because I still want to hang out with them every now and then. I know what they're doing. And they're like, they switched from economy to first class, they're staying at the Ritz, you know, they're taking pictures with cool cars, blah, blah. This is not really helping a company grow, right? Now, if you would have had investors, this would never have happened, because the guys would say, what? What's happening? They would, like, the board would kill that. But in an ICO, no such thing. So, reporting governance, you're like, really, like, today, nothing. No reporting, like nothing. You can do whatever the fuck you want. So, if you're a startup, try at least raising money. Now, benefits for investors, apart from all the negative points, apart from the fact that you don't have control, apart from all the stuff that you're missing out on, like the contracts, everything. There's one thing which really trumps everything else, liquidity. If you have invested, like I have, in startups, you have to wait 200 years before, even if the company is doing good. You have to wait, and then you have someone with liquidity preferences, you're basically fucked. So you're, from an investor point of view, you can invest today, and once it becomes listed, boom, you can start trading, which is amazing. And this is why a lot of investors are getting in, because it's cool. It doesn't even matter if the company is actually building shit. I mean, seriously. It doesn't matter. Some like the brand or the marketing builds up the value, and you as an investor can benefit. Now, of course, use your brains. I mean, get out, because if the company has no intrinsic value, if the guys are doing nothing, I'm not going to continue keeping my shares there. I mean, seriously, if Apple all of a sudden decided to build, I don't know, washing machines, I would probably say, maybe it's time to get out. I don't know, maybe the washing machine would be fucking amazing, I don't know. I'm just saying that if a company does something idiotic and you see that they're not doing something, because what happens with most ICOs, they do an ICO and then before the ICO, every 2 days you get like a report, like, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that, picture, like new advisor, product. Then they have the ICO, done. And then until the listing, then there's a little, we're doing listing. And then afterwards, what do you think? In like a year, there will be a correction, trust me. I'm not saying Bitcoin will fail because Bitcoin is fucking amazing, but companies who build shit, I mean, it's the same in the virtual world. If they don't build something, they're not executing, it's gonna die at some point, right? I mean, people can be idiots for some time and buy stuff and trade stuff, but at some point in time they're going to say, oh, this is basically useless. Is anyone using this? No. So crazy risks, huge rewards, but use your brains. And if you have crypto, diversify. Don't put everything in one. Like this is again like something that I've said to a lot of investors. Don't put everything in Bitcoin, don't put everything in Ethereum, don't put everything in one specific coin, diversify. And once you see something goes up, and it's not Bitcoin or Ethereum, get out. I mean, that's my advice. Because most of the ICOs will die out in the coming decade, maybe 5 years. Why? Because it's the same with startups. This is the same age. I mean, sorry, I'm not saying anything new, right? If you're an investor and you know what shares are, you know what equity they do, you know what value creation is, guys. You do an ICO, all of a sudden the token goes to the roof. Why? Something happened? No. So be smart about it. Okay, up until like certain moments in time, I was an investor. And I like doing that. I like doing what Sal is doing, like supporting other entrepreneurs. But I'm not so social and nice as Sal, so I didn't do that for a lot of companies. I did that for 3 companies. And then while I was doing that, I realized that the thing that I couldn't do before, which I cared about, I don't care about money anymore. I don't care about making more money, buying more shit. I don't care about that anymore. The only thing I care about is living longer. That's the only thing I care about. Because, I mean, you can have everything in the world, but once you die, I'm sorry to be so negative, it doesn't matter. So, in my life, I had like ups and downs. Like, I can write a book basically about the ups and also the downs. So I know what it means, like what is important in life. And that's what I realized basically. That the only thing I care about today is living longer. And at some point in time, I started caring about it, so I went to doctors. Like, what can I do? What can I do to like improve my health? Because I'm getting older. Like I'm looking in the mirror, I'm starting to get. I mean, you understand what I mean, right? Once you reach a certain age, you don't look the same as you looked 25 when you were 25. So you start buying these crappy creams and stuff because you want to look younger, but all of them don't really work. So that's why I started Hybrid. It's basically a project for me. And I think it's better that there's a lot of, like if you have questions about investing in ICOs, I'll be here. If you have questions about doing ICOs, I'll be here. And I can probably give you some advice on how not to do it because I've made all the mistakes myself. So I'm going to give it to George, who used to be who is still an advisor, but he decided to join me on my quest, and I think it's better that you talk a little about it.
So, hello everyone again. My name is George, and I've been, like I'm 26-year-old, and I've been already having like 4 to 5 years like in real life, okay, like working, doing quite different stuff, a lot of projects with Alex, but also a lot of projects on the side. Together we created a mobile investor platform connecting investors with entrepreneurs. Meanwhile, I had the opportunity to work on many startups, to advise many startups, to get involved. And this specific year for myself was very important and was very cool in a way, because on the one hand, like professionally, I reached this point where, like when I started 3, 4, 5 years ago, I was very, fresh, like immature, like scared, if you want, of stuff, of people. But at this year, like I already gathered enough experience, enough failures, enough successes, so that I had enough self-confidence in myself, so I know like whatever I start or whatever I get involved with, I'm gonna figure it out. Like I'm gonna get it done in one way or another. And in that sense, this started giving me a sense of security in that I'm good, and whatever happens to me, I'll be fine, and I'll have my basics covered in any case. And yeah, like I can start working on, and I want to start working on something which really excites me. Now, meanwhile, this year has been also very important for me as now, like for all of my life, I've been a very active person, like sports-wise. Since a very young age, I started playing soccer. Then, I mean, I've been doing swimming, I've been doing running, hiking, like outdoors. I've been doing rowing. I mean, like, I'm just a guy who loves moving. Like, I have this, like, specifically this year was very important for me because I made it a habit for me, like, every morning when I get up, when I wake up, like, I go on the floor, 30 minutes workout. Every few days, when I, like, get stressed out, like, too much work, I put on my headphones, turn up the music, go out in the streets and run like crazy. And this is basically my way to meditate in a way, because I stop thinking about everything else. It's just like myself, the music, and that's what really charges me. Now, I want to be like this for more. I love like the way I am right now, and if I could freeze time and like just continue feel and look and stay the way I'm like right now, I would do everything I could. But I know that, like, let's say my father used to be exactly the same way when he was my age as I am, okay? Like, he used to do the same stuff. He used to do pretty much the same type of sports he used to do, like I'm doing right now. But, now, as you can imagine, you know, stuff changes. So that's basically myself, right? Like, I'm 26, and my father is 62. Now, as you can imagine, I'm not necessarily looking forward to becoming 62 and looking and feeling the way he does. Now, obviously, I love my father, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily in love with the color of his hair he has right now. I'm not necessarily in love with the amount of hair he has right now. And something you don't necessarily see from this picture, but I'm not also necessarily in love with the friendly, fluffy belly he has been building up over the past 10, 15 years. And so that is why when Alex started this project, I was really excited about, hey, like, what, like, let's really get this done. Let's do this. And just to take this like aside from a second, I have a question for you. Now imagine I'm a magician and I can do like whatever you tell me I can do. And imagine that if I tell you, like, you give up half of your bitcoins, half of your ether, half of your any like real estate, whatever you own, and in exchange for that, I can make you look and feel like you're 26 or 25 or whatever is like a perfect age for you. Or if you are just like me, like you love it the way you are right now, then I can freeze time and you can remain like this for the coming 10 years or so. How many of you would be up for such an offer? Like, assuming that this is actually possible. Please raise your hands if that's the case.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So everyone else likes the way you look right now.
If it were actually possible.
So
If it was possible, if it was 100% possible.
This is like important. Like, most of us in our society, we've accepted aging. We've accepted it. And this is like, I don't know why, but aging is a disease. It's not something normal, guys, really. But our society has told us that it's okay. You get born, then you start studying, or you're in kindergarten studying, you work, and then you die. Our genes are programmed to live 150 years, but we don't live 150 years. So inside our mindset, we have this belief that it's impossible. And because of that, most of you will say, oh, that's not going to work right.
Just like what Saldet said in the beginning, right, in the Egyptian times, people thought, okay, there is no other way, like we're just slaves and that's how it is. And I feel the same way, and there's been so many, like, I feel the same way of, you know, like 150 years ago, people thought we couldn't fly, but then we did it. 50 years ago, people thought we couldn't go to the moon. Then we did it. Like 5 years ago, we thought we use rockets, and then we did it. And so we've proven the impossible to be possible multiple and multiple ways, in multiple and multiple times. And I believe, and it's not just my belief, but I've talked with a lot of scientists, experts, biologists, who, as Alex said, like, we're programmed to live to 150 years old. And we are at this age in time where we're the most technologically advanced. And we just have to start thinking about it. We have to start working about it, because, like, for half of the people who raise their hands, okay, if you truly are ready, like, to give up half of everything you own, and in order for like living longer and staying younger longer, then I find it fascinating that we as a society are not really moving strong towards achieving this. Because, as Alex said, and like this, the solution to why we're not doing this is quite simple, in my opinion, but at the same time very silly. It's because it's just the way it's always been, and we don't think we can change it. We don't think like this is possible.
And with that, we're gonna change the world, guys. Let's go. We just need to remind you that we have another company, so that's why we can't sit too long.
In any case, we'll be around, so would love to talk in person about this project or about the tokens and we're working on. So,
thank you. All right, so while we're getting next company mic'd up, I hope you're all feeling enthusiastic and feeling like the future is bright and we can get younger. But we also heard great experiences on what it means to raise an ICO, what it means to build it up, and what it means to market it. Thanks, Alex and George, for that. So with that, I'm going to call up on stage to tell us their view of what tokens are, how to distinguish between utility tokens and security tokens, and what it means and what's the difference. And I'm going to call up on stage the founder and CEO of Token Estate. Guys, we need to... Vincent, who's going to tell us a story. Let's give him a hand.
Guys, that's a pleasure to be here and to be talking to you all about the different kind of tokens that we have out there. It's been a deluge of ICOs and you know, they grab all the headlines. But I feel that it would be interesting to dig a bit deeper into the different kind of digital assets that are being sold out there. So let's quickly start with a brief introduction. I'm an entrepreneur and leading Token Estate today. I've been involved in the high-tech space for the past 4 years, and what I love is to bring technology to market. I believe that we're living, you know, very exciting times, and we see this technological revolution happening, and I wanted to be part of this. So I've been working with virtual reality headset, with the Internet of Things, and I do believe that every year there is a special opportunity to bring a given technology to market, and today is the time of blockchain, and I view this opportunity to build something with this. So what I want to say is I'm not necessarily, I would say, a geek or a specialist or coding a new blockchain. What I'm interested about is bringing the blockchain and putting it to use in the same way that you're going to create an app for an iPhone, but not willing to bring a new iPhone to market. Obviously, I have a darker side in my professional experience as well. I've been working for McKinsey and in commodity trading before. Without further ado, let's get started. So here, we want to. There's so many of those tokens being released, but what is a token exactly? So starting with the basics, a token is something that serves as a representation of something else. Obviously, the definition here says, visible or tangible, so it's a bit kind of surprising that we use this for digital assets, but I guess the digital is becoming closer to reality today. And then it's also something that can be exchanged for goods or services. So, everybody knows that. And I guess we have tokens everywhere. If you go to the casino, then you're gonna play with tokens because you don't want to put real currency on the table. If you live in Lausanne, actually, and that's a known example, the token to use the garbage disposal service is actually a garbage bag that, whose price includes the service. But some might say that, an engagement ring might be a token as well, a representation of a feeling and a promise for future services. So tokens have been there forever. Actually, archaeologists in the 50s in the Middle East, and forgive me, I don't remember where exactly, they came across piles and piles of those stuff, and initially some of the guys was like, what is it for? Is it some form of medicine that people put in their backside or something? And really, they have no clue. And eventually, they started to see some trends, and they realized that there was a whole kind of accounting system. And this was 1,000 years before Christ. So that served as an economic system back then. Now, I'm putting a consulting hat. If we try to kind of slice and dice the rights that you have associated with the token, we can come up with the following taxonomy. So, it's not mutually exclusive, but let's say, tokens, they have no intrinsic value, like the clay that we just saw, the token itself is worthless. It's the rights that are attached to it by, someone else or another entity. So obviously, with digital tokens today, you can pay with Bitcoin, with Ether, but also you can have certain access rights. One might say that the boarding passes that you have on your smartphone are tokens, and they give you access to a plane. They can also serve to share profit or fees, and we'll come back to that because that's the notion of security tokens. You might need certain tokens to play a certain role in a platform. For example, mining blocks in certain blockchains, or influence the governance on other projects. But to simplify things, maybe we can just cluster those in three main categories to simplify. First, you have cryptocurrencies, and we all know about them. Second, you have utility token, and we'll see that it's a bit of a fuzzy definition, but there are some well-known examples out there, such as storage or Filecoin. And then we have security tokens. And I will delve into modern.io. That's a startup, Zurich-based startup. Very interesting startup, by the way, if you're interested in security tokens and the model they put together, because they issued their own security token, and they did this in September. They've been quite a source of inspiration for us. And obviously, a token estate, the project I'm leading, we're willing to issue our own security token. So why are startups embracing tokens? And I guess it's worth kind of understanding why they do this. Because it solves the bootstrapping problem. Because before, when the time was, when funding was dominated by VCs and angels, well, you had a problem because you started creating some application which had utility only if a large amount of users were moving to the platform. So you needed to beg for money, or you needed to work without money to develop your product in a bootstrap way until it was good enough and there was enough users so that it could gain value for everyone. Now, with the token, what you do is you're developing an application and it has very little value because it's not finished or you don't have enough users on them. But your users are also your financiers. And because they have skin in the game, they are willing to use the service and promote it, because if they do so, and when the platform develops and there are more users, then they will have great financial utility out of this, and they will materially profit from it. And if you assume that now the service has been fully developed and the platform stable, then the token don't have that much return into them, so they cease to exist as an incentive for people to invest in your platform. So I thought this framework was quite interesting. Now, to go into cryptocurrencies, let's quickly go through what is a currency, because that's something that sometimes is not totally clear. First, a currency is a store of value. So it's a way for you to store value in a way that is non-perishable. Historical currencies were gold. So if you have salads, you rather sell your salads today so you have a currency that will store value for a longer period than salads. So you can smooth purchases over time. It's a unit of account, so you can divide it. And Bitcoin, we know, can go down to 1 Satoshi, which is 18 decimal, if I believe. So you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. But that's an essential characteristic of a currency. So that's why you cannot pay for things using a cow, because you cannot split a cow into, otherwise it loses a lot of value. And then it's a medium of exchange. It's accepted by a network of vendors, and you can pay for goods or services against it. And we'll dig into that on the Bitcoin case, because we see obviously more and more people accepting Bitcoin in exchange for services. Now, when you're talking about a currency, what really brings it value from a macroeconomic perspective would be, how does the supply behave according to demand? If both are stable, then the value of the unit should be stable. But if, for example, you have a dramatic increase of supplies, such as in Zimbabwe in 2008, then you're going to see crazy inflation, because the supply expands dramatically while the demand stays the same. How is it for cryptocurrencies? We see that for Bitcoin, we know exactly how the supply of Bitcoin will look like, and we know exactly how many Bitcoins there will be at any given point in time, because this is controlled by the protocol. So you remove an uncertainty, which is the supply. So if the Bitcoin raises today to crazy height, at least it's not because somehow the number of Bitcoin has decreased or there is less Bitcoin, that there is a constraint in supply. The supply will expand at a given rate and will reach 21 million Bitcoins, and then that will be it. How about the demand then? Well, that's probably the driver behind the growth in the Bitcoin today, because Bitcoins now are increasingly accepted for a variety of goods and services. A recent example in Switzerland is in Neuchâtel, where a company was funded and the social capital was made out of 3 Bitcoins, and it was accepted by the authorities as an in-kind contribution. So you can finance a company in Neuchâtel using Bitcoins today. You can pay for services in Zug using Bitcoins. The Bank of Japan accepts them. Actually, what is really surprising about Bitcoin is the pace at which it's gaining mainstream acceptance. But then, we should also touch on the fact that the notion of cryptocurrency has been dramatically abused by startups, because it's so easy to issue one, right? So everybody came up with their own cryptocurrency. And what is really interesting about the crypto is also the relatively light legal treatment that applies to them. Because it's a cryptocurrency, for example, it's not regulated in Singapore. It's relatively easy to set up a cryptocurrency without ending up in jail. So that's why you see a lot of those. But there is also a problem with the current cryptocurrency. Sorry, I'm jumping to another topic. And in Bitcoin, everybody heard about the energy consumption of Bitcoin. And just to put in perspective, that's a data point that came out last week. The Bitcoin blockchain consumes as much electrical energy as Morocco, a war country like Morocco. So all the washing machines, the telephones, the air conditioners, the lights of Morocco, all this energy is being used to support the Bitcoin blockchain today. So that's something to keep in mind, because in my opinion, it's hard to imagine that this could continue like that, or that there won't be the need for a form of fix there. To wrap it up, on the cryptocurrency specifically, for me, it looks like there will be a limited number of cryptocurrencies down the road, such as, you have a limited number of operating systems today. You have Windows, you have iOS, you have Linux. Why? Because those operating systems, they are the substrates, they are the infrastructure for lots of applications to live on top. So that's why you just cannot change an operating system. To a certain extent, that's the same with a cryptocurrency. They need to be accepted by a number of vendors, they need to be recognized, and there won't be this space for dozens of cryptocurrencies, but only a few main ones, I would postulate. Also, let's keep in mind that central banks are issuing their own crypto fiat, because nothing prevents a central bank to use the blockchain to also issue digital assets, but those ones will be recognized by the bank. We see that Russia is doing that, we see that the United Arab Emirates have been doing that. So when people think of all the advantages of a cryptocurrency, they should keep in mind that soon you'll be able to have your own crypto dollars or your own crypto euros. So maybe that will bring the value of the Bitcoin down. The infrastructure is still maturing. I just mentioned the energy consumption. Obviously, the developer behind all blockchain applications are studying various protocols, especially the proof of stake protocols, which is not as energy intensive as the current proof of work protocol. And also, obviously, it's still development, and even if it's going fast, it will take some time before it becomes totally accepted. So, jumping now to utility tokens. So what is a utility token exactly? It gives people access to a service, as I mentioned. So, in a sense, it represents your future product. So you're forward selling your own product or service with a utility token. That's the concept. You're selling it now, that people can use it in a few years, and they are betting that they are getting a good deal now, so that they will get a good deal then. You can use it as digital coupons, so it's not service per se, but it's a discount on the future offering you have. And then the interest is that the application that applies to it is somewhat much lighter. So the main example is Filecoin, and you heard about them because they rose in September $257 million. So it was a huge deal, and they use a utility token. Basically, it's some sort of a closed loop economy where people who want to store file on the cloud, a service like Dropbox, they buy those tokens, and the miners, in this case, the one getting the tokens, are the actors providing the service. So there, just conceptually, just to point it out, it looks like a cryptocurrency, but with a very, very specific use. So one could postulate that a utility token is a form of cryptocurrency, but with a super limited application or way to redeem it. Another example close to us is Swissborg. I'm sure you have heard of them. They're based in Lausanne. And if you look at the terms and conditions, which, as the previous presenter mentioned, no one does, you can see that they say that they are a utility token. But on their particular way, it's a utility token that has absolutely no right, express or implied. And that the participant has no right to any particular or specific contribution or advantage. So basically, it's a utility token without a utility. So it's, I think, quite interesting. It's, it's like if I sell you a movie theater ticket, but it doesn't give you the right to go to the movie theater. So do you buy a movie theater? But no movie, okay? So that's, I would say maybe a perversion of it. They might have their own legal reason to do it, I'm sure, but it's just like, it doesn't feel right from an entrepreneur perspective to be issuing those kind of terms and conditions. We all gonna live for a very long time, as you mentioned, Alex and George, and I believe that, eventually those kind of games will get back to their owners. So
we should invite Swissborg next time to explain this.
I'm sure they will definitely accept the invitation. So to wrap it up, it's better than, say, doing balkanized crypto, even if it looks like a balkanized crypto. I tend to believe that utility token could serve a narrow purpose, legitimately. It's lightly regulated, and it solves the bootstrapping problem. On the minus, one thing to consider is that you lose part of your pricing power. So if you forward sell your product, then you've been forward selling a part of your capacity, and you sold it at a given price. So if the price is good, that's okay. If not, then you go bust. There is a VAT issue, because the government might come back to you and say, oh, that's good, you sell your product and you sold your service, that's excellent, bravo. So did you collect the VAT? Because the baker, when he sells his bread, he collects the VAT. So what do you do? So there was a lot of companies who find themselves in a relatively tight spot because they lose hundreds of millions of dollars for selling their product, but they didn't know exactly what their VAT liabilities were. I guess that's a lot of work for a tax specialist, and that's a good thing. And then you have fuzzy terms and conditions sometimes, as we just saw with Swissborg. Now, on the security token, and that's one part that we believe is underrepresented, understood, and that deserves, I would say, more media coverage, is security token. Conceptually, what is it? The idea is to take a digital asset on the blockchain, so a token, it worth nothing intrinsically, but attach to it certain rights to mimic, I would say, existing instruments, such as securities like equity. For example, you can get the payment of dividends, or the repayment of principal and interest in the case of debt. Or you could also attach to it certain governance rights. So if you're a shareholder at Nestle, you would get part of the dividend, but also you would have some form of influence over the company through as a shareholder. So that you can do the very same thing with a security token. One thing important about the security token is the whole test, and that's US law. But the whole test is a test which says, I hope I won't jump to the next one, it says that if you're performing an investment of money in a common company or enterprise with the expectations of profit, and you will solely benefit from the effort of others by contributing capital, that's it, then it classifies as a security. And then what happens is that it brings a lot of red flags, and people say, you can't do this. You cannot sell a security. Why? Because then you're going to need a license from the US authority, the big license that it takes them so long to issue. And if you don't do that, you end up in jail, like Charlie Shrem, one of the crypto entrepreneurs who ended up in jail in 2015. And the thing to keep in mind is, that we're not in the United States. We are in a much and the legislation here is not the same as the US. And we know in Switzerland that Switzerland has a vested interest in attracting blockchain businesses and making use of the blockchain, because it's a small country. You need to find a way to differentiate yourselves. And we saw with various initiatives in Switzerland that you can build legitimately a business using security tokens in Switzerland. So Modem, they just did that in September. They rose about 15 million US with an equity token. So the mechanism described in the terms and conditions is the following. It says that if $1 is issued to the shareholder as a dividend, then $1 would be paid collectively to the token holders. And it's really interesting, and that this payment will come out of the net profit of the company. So I love this. Why? Because it brings I would say, the current way of doing things. Shareholders, they're very important. They finance you in many ways. And the new actors of the economy, token holders. And there is a way to bring them and to link their fate together. That's what I love about that structure. Also, the payment is coming out of the net profit of the company. That means what? That means you pay your taxes. It's very important to pay taxes, otherwise you might end up in jail. So that's really a structure which in my eyes was groundbreaking, and that we are just merely trying to imitate with token estate. And I would assume many other companies are considering this. Last Saturday, there was some news in France, and security tokens are basically possible in France as well. It was announced that non-listed equities could be exchanged using the blockchain. And I'm French, and it came as a surprise because you don't, expect France in those kind of fields. And I guess, that's the effet Macron, I would say. But if France is doing it, and Switzerland is doing it, and other countries are doing it, then kind of, then you can do it in Europe, right? So maybe there is an alternate way to issuing bullshit tokens or making fake crypto economies and just go straight for a security token. And even if you're not in the blockchain business, it's just a way to attract investors, you know, in a very simple fashion. To wrap it up, security tokens they offer a much better deal for investors. We all know that they don't care today, but it doesn't mean that they won't care tomorrow. It brings together the shareholders and the token holders, and it solves some governance issues, because you can do this with an SA. You don't have to set up a funky foundation and don't have control on the capital, etc., as we see with Bezos. It's more complicated to sell it today to investors, and it requires probably a stronger legal setup, because indeed what you're selling is a security. To wrap it up, I'm convinced that security tokens are the future, you know, of the crypto economy. And I do believe that more and more startups will use this. And if you are yourself considering doing an ICO, you probably will be there in 6 months or something. And I believe that by then, the market will have moved towards those kind of tokens, which are, you know, much more protective, much more clear. To finish up, let me talk briefly about what we do at Token Estate. So we're based in Geneva, and what we want to do is to connect crypto investors with the most predictable and boring asset class on the planet, and I say real estate. And because today, if as an investor you want to get into real estate, it's not necessarily a pleasant or efficient experience. If you invest directly, then it's transaction costs are enormous, you need to put a lot of money in, it's very time consuming. If you want to invest through a listed fund, and you're a retail investor, then your retail bank will charge you enormous fees for you to trade in foreign exchanges, and the funds themselves, they pay enormous fees to be listed on exchanges. So that's really inefficient. So how do we solve that? Well, we're planning in building Token Estate, which is, let's say, a compliance service to collect funds from crypto investors, and then, sorry, because it's the Mac Windows, and then fund Token Estate investment vehicles that will themselves invest in real estate assets. So what we're planning in doing is linking the on-chain world of crypto investors with the off-chain world. And what is important to understand is that we're not planning in changing anything at all on this part. It's a very existing industry. You have lots of real estate asset managers which do a splendid job. All we want to do is for them to find an alternative source to be public, and to be public through a real estate token that will be issued through our marketplace. Feel free to check our website if you want to know more, or drop me an email on this address. And if any of you guys are interested in joining this project, also feel free to talk to me, because we're hiring and planning to do an ICO, you know, sometimes next year, most probably April, May, and we'll be private till then. Thank you very much.
So I guess with that, Vincent, thanks a lot for the terrific presentation. What we're going to move on to is a little bit of Q&A. And so I'm going to bring on stage back up the guys. Sarah, you wanna lead it? Yeah, we're going to bring up Vincent, Alex, and George. Let's take an extra chair. All right, let's be brutal. Let's kill these guys. I'm going to join the party. So, who has questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, question. You say the key advantage of an ICO is liquidity. How come that 90% of tokens never traded, if that number is right? Do you think A, that number is right? And B, 90% of projects are all bad enough to be traded, or scams?
Okay.
That's a typical Swiss question. I have to
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
again, you have to do due diligence before you invest in a project. And most of the ICOs, I'm sorry to say, is about money grabbing. It's very easy. Again, like I said, create a website, blah, 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 blah. If there's nothing there, people get the money, and then they forget about it. If it's an actual project, then we'll start trading. That means either the company will start trading, but if it's US law, they can't do it themselves, so someone has to start it from the users. But there has to be value, there has to be some utility. If there's no utility, and first of all, people do a token sale. You get like a lot of people who have bounty tokens, like who get them for free. So then the founders say, I don't want to do a listing right now because I gave out, I don't know, 10% or 20% of tokens for free to advisors. So they keep it away. So you have to do your due diligence. Who gets the tokens? Does it make sense? Is there utility? And obviously, I think, it's less than 90%. I mean, 90% of the companies will fail. You know that. I mean, it's the same as with startups. Probably 99%. And only 1% will actually create some value. And that's normal. That's basic economy. So for me, that's, I don't know, you guys have other.
I think, I know it's not a traditional way to do this, like to do this type of due diligence, but what Alex mentioned earlier is that if you get in the communication channels and you just follow like a lot and you read like from the very beginning until whatever, you just read the whole thing, see how the communication goes, maybe like you can join and ask questions as well, but you can like pretty well build a rather correct image of the founders, of what their vision is. Kind of like, you know, you can assess for yourself whether they will list the token, whether they have a plan on listing the token, and whether they have a plan of actually making this token interesting, liquid over time. It's just putting the work from my point of view.
Well, it is also important to have a lot of ICOs who actually promise you stuff. I mean, like if you buy the token, like once we get listed, you get this amount of percentage, profit, blah, blah, blah. Like, by default, they won't be listed. They will be shut down. And you have already a lot of examples like that. So if you're investing in a token, you have to check, you have to do your due diligence. And then you have to expect the token to be listed once there is some value. Otherwise, it's purely speculative.
Or I give my money to a crypto VC fund, and the VC funds are back. Yeah? It's funny to see that all the infrastructure, they're not called investment bankers, they're not Goldman Sachs called, they're called now consultant ABC, you mentioned that. They're coming back.
Look, you look like a smart guy, right? I mean,
No.
why would you let someone else this? No, really. Like this approach of giving money to someone else, I've been there. And then there was the financial crash. So I used to be like, oh yeah, you have these people who are much smarter than me, who can make these decisions for me. You have to do it yourself if you really want to like make a profit. And you have to get in. If you just don't give the money to someone, okay, I don't know.
Let's see, Vincent. What do you think?
Well, on this I would say I wouldn't necessarily have your insight, but Boko, you know as I do that 90% of startups fail, so it's not a surprise. I would say that a good chunk of them are not listed. What I observed was a huge pressure on the Telegram channel to get listed very quickly. And I tend to believe that this is the sign that the investor base is really interested in flipping their investment very quickly. Obviously, we like to say that we don't want those investors, but you know, for sure we'll get some pressure to get listed ASAP so that people can exit the investment. I guess there is some middle ground there. The moment you get listed, then you're under the pressure of the market, and maybe the token will go down in value for no reason and up in value for no reason. I'd rather be listed when you have ongoing metrics, ongoing traction, ongoing operations, so that we can, I would say, objectively get a value of the token and justify its value.
You have to create value. Without value.
All right, let's go for another question there in the back. Yes.
Hi, good evening. My first question is to you. Thank you for the presentation, it was very clear. I still do not understand very well the shareholder, in terms of security tokens, shareholder and governance. If I'm not mistaken, today, when you are a shareholder, at least in Switzerland, even in other countries, you have the law, and then you have a shareholder agreement defining exactly the rules. So does it mean that in your case, with a security token, so everyone would have a different type of rules and governance, or do you think that would be something more general? And on the second aspect, on the slides, you presented your business. I understand that you may buy a share of real estate through cryptocurrencies. How do you get out eventually? I see the mechanism within, but not going out. Very well, thank you.
Welcome. So I'll quickly go on the first question you mentioned, and you were saying that you were wondering if there would be some form of harmonization in this, yes, or if there would be some correlation. All I can say is today it's not regulated, so you can literally define the governance you want because you don't have precedents. In the case of Modern, it was quite interesting because they set up milestones, basically to bring their product to market. And they agreed with the investors that the investor would vote if the milestone was attained or not. And if the investor voted yes, then this would release tokens for the management. So, the vested interest that the management has. And if the investors would vote no, then they would rework on that part and redo it 6 months later. So all I can say is that this kind of governance is really smart because it aligns the investor interest. You want the company to bring the product to market, but at the same time you want to keep on check what the management is cashing out. And at the same time the management incentive. I don't know if you can do this in the shareholder agreement today, but to your point, probably I would expect that there is a form of harmonization there, that we get closer to the shareholder agreement that exists today, or I would assume.
You may have a term sheet that defines exactly
how. You do have this on the term sheet.
So that's why I was trying to understand.
If you look at the modern term sheet, it's very clear. They define all those milestones and what they do. In the world of blockchain, you have the DAO, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, and you have this utopia that maybe the investors, they can take every single decision, that you can consult them for every investment. The limit to that is probably investor sleepiness or kind of unresponsiveness, because even if theoretically people would like to be invested in every decision, what you see is that people are not that committed. They just want to buy a token and not be bothered every time the company makes a decision. So I'm not sure where we will go. Will it be a DAO, full DAO, where people take every decision, or people will relinquish the decision making? I don't know. And for the second part, what we do is we issue for the real estate funds. We want to act as a token as a service. So if you are a regular real estate fund, you can raise money from institutional investors, high net worth individuals, and we want Token Estate to be one source of financing among many others. And what you would get from us is the ability to issue a token, so that's the smart contract, for example, but our smart contract is quite straightforward. The legal aspect, where can you sell? Do you have the licenses to do so? And is Token Estate having the license to sell in certain geographies? And also access to a community of investors, because the idea is to have Token Estate as a recognized brand. And if you want to invest in real estate, then you go on Token Estate on your mobile phone and you can buy a few tokens in real estate. If you want to go into more detail, maybe we can speak later.
We have another question there in the back.
Sorry.
No? Okay,
The
so
mic
we come up from here.
Yeah, hi, it's Chris from Geneva. Hi, this is Chris from Geneva. What I found interesting is what you all described is that we are now in the new age of creating liquidity for startups and basically boosting innovation. And I just want to understand if you think this ICO or token sale or security sale model is around blockchain related projects only, or do you also see this could shake the whole industry of VC, and then also people who have nothing to do really with blockchain potentially could use this new model?
Alex, you want to start?
Yeah. I think this will change everything. Today, you raise money for blockchain stuff, but basically, it will change everything. It doesn't. No, but look, there is this approach, and I was there where he was and where the other classic investors were. Like, you have to bring the equity and the security to the token economy. I don't believe this is needed. Because once you have a token, and you give it, I give you a token, I can have as many contracts as I want. But the token is basically either frozen or not frozen. And it doesn't matter which contract you have backing it up. I can send it, I can transfer it, I can trade it. And basically this approach of let's adapt the venture capital industry to the token economy, I mean, I believe from a founder point of view and from an investor point of view, this is wrong. Why? Because this whole token economy is about empowering the founders. I'm a founder, Sal is a founder. There's no way in hell we're going to have democracy in a company. Like, who believes in real democracy today? Where do we have real democracy, guys? Where we have, like, votes. We have, you have representatives. You choose someone to represent you.
Not in Switzerland.
No? Okay, sorry. Anywhere else in the world? I come from Belgium. I come from Belgium. We had like 18 months no government. Okay? Imagine everyone having a vote. I mean, sorry, I should check on Switzerland.
Yes.
but a company, any company should be run by its founders. It should not be the decision what to do, when to do it. Milestones, they change. You can have a milestone, you can say, oh, I'm going to build this, and like in 6 months, stuff changes, your milestones change, but all of a sudden your investor is going to say, yeah, but you didn't reach your milestones, so we're not going to release the funds. Your company is dead. And don't think that the interest of the investors who are very short term, and in token sales it's even shorter term, that they are the same as the drivers for the founders who are thinking long term. You cannot unite those. So I hope that companies who give this power to investors will survive. I hope, I really do. But there's not a lot of countries like Switzerland.
Everybody should move to Switzerland. That's the last one.
Okay, we have another question here.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jose. I still have didn't understand quite what actually ICO means. What are you selling? Are you selling shares from the company? Are you selling services, future products? What are you selling?
So the ICO is the distribution of digital assets which are supported on the blockchain, right? Technically, this is what happened. This digital
But they represent
asset,
the company.
No, this digital asset itself has no intrinsic value. It's like the clay figure we saw, right? It's like the casino chips. So what has value is what what right the company has assigned them. So
Okay, so it's free.
So what I'm saying is, for example, if you want to buy modern tokens, you have the terms and conditions of the token which are public, and there they commit to certain things. They commit to a certain use of fund, they commit to certain goals, and they commit to, if they pay their shareholder $1, they would pay their token holders $1. So that's the right that you get.
There's no limitation then. I can actually sell, okay, I will compromise to, if you buy my value of my shares by $1, I compromise to sell you by $1.20 in 5 years, for instance, I can do this.
So basically you can issue a token and you can attach any kind of right you want to it, yes.
Okay.
Or no rights.
Or no rights. All right.
Or pretend to attach rights to it as an entity.
Yeah, so just like for myself, because it's also like some time ago, it took me a lot to understand. But what Vincent already explained, there's basically two types of tokens. There's security, which reflects some type of ownership. You can think of it like a share in a way, although like the exact rights can vary. Basically, you define them, like the founders define them wherever they like, so you have to read it. And then there's utility, which serves some type of a function within the ecosystem. So you can think of it as a currency within a very small economy, which is completely independent from the whole economy. Let's say, you can think of it like, let's say I'm doing a festival and I'm selling tickets to my festival. And the tickets are essentially the utility. This is what I'm selling you. This is the utility tokens. And then you can trade them like between each other.
but you don't have any shares of the profit of the festival.
Yeah.
So this is why you cannot mix them.
But obviously, if there's a lot of people who want to go to the festival, and you were the one forced to get them, obviously the price of the token would go up.
No, what I was trying to understand is actually what can I sell?
You can sell anything you want.
You can
And
sell
this-
anything.
That's
Okay.
what's happening today.
So I'm free to
can
just
do
say,
whatever.
okay, I
You don't
give
even
you
have to connect it to a share, nothing.
give you a pin with your name if you, whatever.
That's why you need to do due diligence.
Okay, so
That's
now
why I
we move
understand.
to the next question.
I get it.
I have to preface my question first. That is very maybe my question is just out of my own stupidity or my own limited knowledge. It's really stupid. So when we talk about ICO, I think that we are talking about ICO on the Ethereum blockchain, right? Now my question to you guys is: will the success of the company, or will the dynamics between the token holders and the company change if we have another blockchain? And what happens if Ethereum, for example, collapse completely? How does that happen? What will happen how do you solve that situation?
Can I ask, just quickly, you have ICOs on other blockchains. Some ICOs launching their own blockchain. So, but that's a detail, I would say. Your question about, if you start building applications on top of a given blockchain, such as Ethereum, what happens when the blockchain collapses? That's one question we had in our minds as well. And I guess you can mitigate it by having, I would say, a way to communicate with your investors. How to say, if you run an ICO, you will have a smart contract with, let's say, the addresses that own your tokens. So you have this information always. Should the Ethereum blockchain cease to exist, you have this information, and if you have a way to link it with, way to communicate, an email, something about your investors, then you can say, connect to your investor community and say, guys, Ethereum is disrupted, we're moving to another blockchain, and there we will issue a new smart contract and give you your holdings in this new blockchain that we will use now to support our application. So it's like moving from iOS to Windows. You can save the data and move there. It's just a tool, really. It's just the thing about the blockchain is that it's a digital asset you cannot steal. So if you're a Hollywood movie producer, the minute your movie is out there, then it could be copied 1,000 times. The blockchain is a simple tool so that the transactions are secured, so no one can steal your tokens. That's it, and that's what we're doing. We're putting the blockchain to use to support real estate, but you can imagine doing it with many different blockchains.
What would be the possible mechanism for you to link the identity of the token holders to the addresses on the blockchain itself?
Because you create a profile on the platform. If you want to invest, you create a profile and you list your Ethereum address with a way to contact you. Because we're doing a security, so we just cannot sell it to random investors. We need to perform identity checks on the people contributing to the ICO. Otherwise, the banks will never accept it, and then this money will never be invested in real estate. So, in our particular case, it's not anonymous at all. We need to understand who's behind it, and if you're blacklisted, or if you're coming from a country where we cannot do business with, you mentioned Nigeria, then we could not accept the funds. And you see a lot of startups, they raise a lot of funds, they don't know who the investors are, and then they go and see their bank and say, hey, we have 20 millions, and hey, we're gonna put it in the account, and the bank is like, well, do you know where the money is coming from? If they don't, then they cannot cash out. So you have lots of startups with millions and cannot get it out.
So, Alex, I want to just say something. Ethereum is a great thing, but it is fucking slow. So, I don't think Ethereum can disappear just like blockchain. It's too big, it's used by too many people. But what will happen is basically, we've done like very small transactions in the past 2 weeks. And it took people like days to wire 10 Ether, 5 Ether, 1 Ether. And that's like a problem. So the bigger these platforms are going to be used, the slower they're going to become, the more expensive they're going to become. Today it's much more expensive to wire I don't know, $10 than it is to just, wire it in a normal way. So that's one thing. Second thing is, you should do KYC. You should know your customer. But the moment you issue a token, it's over because the token becomes free and you can transfer the token to anyone. So I think if something happens with Ethereum, what you will have is you will just have give me the token that you have, and you have a migration contract where you take that token, you destroy the token, and you create a new one on another blockchain. So it's very easy to do, but it won't help you to know who your customers were at first, because the moment you send the token and you unfreeze it, you can freeze them. But the moment you send them and they're unfrozen and they're tradable, you don't know who's going to get the token.
There is a mechanism for that.
Okay, but if you have a token that is out there and I transfer my token to you,
I can answer that. So, it's a security token, so it's the right to collect dividend, right? So you have a list of addresses which own the token, which you have whitelisted. Obviously, people will transfer the tokens around, and we don't want to freeze that.
But once you transfer it, it's...
But you transfer it to another address. If this other address is whitelisted in our platform or any other platform...
Basically, you need to be whitelisted first.
But what will happen is that addresses will get whitelisted and you'll have a central registries and exchanges will have whitelisted addresses and people will have digital identities and you will be able to link it. So we're kind of... So what you will do is that if you're not a whitelisted address, you cannot collect your dividend. We'll keep your dividend for 10 years, and then after that we'll give them to a foundation. That's a very interesting problem, but that's the way we try to solve it. And we know that a share without dividend is worthless, right? Because you have no future cash flow.
It's the same as in Apple doesn't know the name of its individuals.
No, but the bank knows. That's the bank knows.
They're going to create these database of users who buy the Apple phone. So if I sell it to you, you can always buy it.
Yes, but
give your
they don't know who holds the shares.
If you have a dividend, it makes sense. Because if you can't get a dividend without being whitelisted, without going to KYC, it makes sense. But in any other case, it's going to be hell to know who's got the token after that, because if you have trading, it's going to be hard. Anyway, it's not a problem if Ethereum disappears, but I really hope it doesn't, and I don't think it will.
Okay, we have another question here.
Thank you. This is Joel from Geneva. I have a question about the use of security tokens for real estate purposes. The tokens are designed to be to live without central authority. But how do you deal with the fact that people expect, maybe people don't expect to have just a single gateway between the blockchain and real life? For example, if you want to purchase real estate, you need to use this single point of contact, which is, for example, your company.
In our particular case, the token estate marketplace that we're building, it will launch real estate tokens, right? So real estate funds can go and tokenize their offering, and it corresponds to a part of the dividend, and they can launch it in the form of tokens. And we don't plan in preventing people from exchanging such tokens.
Okay.
And so that means we do not plan in being the only marketplace where you can exchange them. Okay. Obviously, when you launch them, you want a form of exclusivity. So when you're launching a real estate token on the token estate marketplace, then you only do it on our marketplace because you need to focus the demand. Okay. But once the token has launched, it can be picked up by any other exchanges out there. As long as there is a form of KYC in those exchanges, then the token owner can collect a dividend, and those tokens you can... Our idea is that if you're a bus driver and you want to invest in the city where you're living, and you want just to put 50 euros at the end of the month, then you should be able to do it, and you should be able to do it from your smartphone. That's down the road, the vision we have. The vision we have also is that today, to be a real estate fund, you need to be super